This is Victoria Nevins speaking to Harman Mangat. Harman, you and I met a couple of years ago around this time when I dropped off of a package of information regarding the unlawful, illegal conversion of my private interest property into the name of your principal. Now, what you're looking at here, Mr. Mangat, is the application and title fraud performed by your organization in conjunction with agents hired Daniel Carroll, Fulton and Company. This charge is dated November the 27th, 2018. This right here, what you're looking at, is the beginning of acts of genocide to end my life. Now, Mr. Mangat, what you're looking at now is the presentment. Because I'm a woman, I don't plead for anything. This is the beginning of the presentment for the loss, harm, and damages that I filed against CIBC and their acting agents for the theft, the outright theft of my private homestead. So, Mr. Mangat, what's going to have to happen is, because I am not being treated fairly or with respect by any agent of CIBC, because none of the agents of CIBC are capable of handling these extremely serious matters, and because, Mr. Mangat, you are the only agent of CIBC with personal knowledge of the subject matter I am speaking to you about, you are charged with handling this matter going forward. I, the victim of your crimes, I am a woman. My name is Victoria Nevins. I stand on my own 2 feet. I'm an expert in law and justice. I'm now charging you with handling these matters moving forward because you are the only agent of CIBC, like I just said, who has personal knowledge of the crimes that have been committed against myself and my family. So I do have an email from you, Mr. Mangat, claiming that you refuse to be involved in these matters. Are you aware that that is the indictable crime of fraud? You are refusing to serve me. You are refusing me service because you don't want to face what you and your agents have done to me and my family. Mr. Mangat, are you aware that I was force evicted from my lawful residence March 19th, 2020, and for the last 2 years, I have not only been homeless but destitute due to the truth that agents acting as the provincial government of British Columbia embezzled every dollar from the fraudulent foreclosure on my home? You're well aware of all of this truth, Mr. Mangat, because I have discussed this with you and other agents and those who were hired by CIBC to attack me in another act of barratry intended to end my life. I do not tell lies. I do not give false witness against my neighbors. I do not give false witness against my enemies. I am a woman of truth and integrity. That is not my character to do such disgusting, vile acts. Now, let's go over, Mr. Mangat. There is an invoice due and payable immediately, Mr. Mangat, to myself. Let's go through this letter. It was also part of the record as I fought for my rights and I fought for my home. This letter, this presentment, this invoice is dated 2 years ago now, 2 years ago, February 18th, 2020. Dear agents of CIBC, Mr. Mangat, that would be you. I introduce myself, I tell you what my name is, I explain to you my office as executor, administrator, personal representative. I explain to you and all agents of CIBC that my spouse and I are the registered lawful owner of the property that CIBC is using to enrich themselves unlawfully and illegally. November the 27th, 2018, CIBC agents fraudulently converted Intrust private property controlled by myself into your ownership, unlawful illegal ownership. When this criminal act took place, CIBC created a non-negotiable joinder contract with myself to pay me a gift for taking care of the property that's now been unlawfully, illegally placed in the name of CIBC. That's why, Mr. Mangat, this invoice is due in Payable and has been for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, I have learned the hard way that the society that I live in is made up almost entirely and completely of children of the devil. Children of the devil are not capable of doing what is right and good and just because they are trained to do the opposite of what is right and good and just. So because you're trained in doing what is evil, when I come to you and I explain to you what is good and just and right, I sound insane to you and all of those just like you. That's the problem. There's never going to be a meeting of the minds between myself, a living woman, and the individuals, the male and females, the humans, legally defined as monsters that I am trying to converse with and do business with. And this is a serious, serious problem for me at this point in my life because I have had enough. Had enough. And when I've had enough, I've had enough. I've had enough. Okay, Mr. Mangat? Now, this presentment, this invoice, it's worded almost identically to the mail fraud letter I received from Daniel Carroll, informing me that CIBC would be unlawfully, illegally stealing my private Intrust property from me, leaving me penniless on purpose. So I, the Honorable Victoria Nevins, am not obligated to accept excuse of partial payment from CIBC as the full balance due and owing under this contract is now payable. So because you didn't pay the invoice, Mr. Mangat, there was compounded interest added to the sum that is due. Because I have every right to treat this criminal organization, CIBC, as this criminal organization has treated me and my family. I have been treated with nothing but disrespect, nothing but dishonor. You do not care about my health, welfare, or my safety, quite obviously, and that is proven with every single agent of CIBC that I have tried to converse with. Every single one of your complaints departments is a complete and utter fraud. You are not going to admit the truth. You can't admit the truth. Mr. Mangat, these matters have to be handled privately because I am certainly not interested in finding someone or even myself having to now sue you or bring action against CIBC in a federal court because CIBC is governed by federal acts and statutes and codes. So this can't be a provincial court matter. Mr. Mangat, this would have to be a federal government court matter. That means everything you've done to me and my family will be on the record, and anybody can look up that case and find out what you bankers really are about instead of what you pretend to be about. You're posting $6.4 billion in profits, Mr. Mangat, and you and your company have to come and steal my house. You have to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from an inheritance that does not belong to you because you and your agents are not listed on the trust document that I presented to you a couple of years ago. You need to prove that as an agent of CIBC, you are aware of the acts, codes, statutes, and laws of the land. And if you can't prove that, then you can't sit in that office. You can't be an agent for CIBC. Do you understand that, Mr. Mangat? Now, there's a court stamp. There's a court stamp on this invoice because this is part of the public record. I knew what agents of the Provincial Court of British Columbia, I knew what agents of CIBC his intention was towards me. Your intention is to sue me into suicide. That's the intention. That's, Mr. Mangat, why you were refusing to deal with this very, very, very serious situation. So I need to be gifted for my time and my energy, Mr. Mangat, for taking care of property that you stole from me in order for you then to steal money from an inheritance, a trust, which you cannot do in Canada. An inheritance cannot be touched, Mr. Mangat. Do you not understand that? And yet that's exactly what you did. Agents of the BC Supreme Court embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars so agents of CIBC could steal monies you are not owed and were never owed. Once CIBC put my house fraudulently into your name, CIBC became responsible for every single household bill pertaining to that property. That's not my responsibility, nor is the responsibility of the estate of my spouse. And a workman is worthy of their hire, Mr. Mangat. And those payments are to be paid at the end of every day. And yet for 2 years, you see, I got so sick and tired of being lied to by the frauds, the fraudulent agents acting as CIBC, Mr. Mangat, that I had to step back and step away from the toxicity that I'm being forced to deal with. There's house insurance, that wasn't my responsibility. There's property taxes, not my responsibility. Once CIBC committed application and title fraud, that is not the responsibility of the estate or the trustee or any of the beneficiaries, Mr. Mangat. You have to be able to see that and understand that. Because you personally have committed not only indictable offenses against me, you have also committed a myriad of civil trespasses against me, and I must hold you accountable in your personal capacity if you and the principal, CIBC, refuse to tell the truth. Zechariah 7:10, you are not to wrong the widow, the orphan, the foreigner. Mr. Mangat, perhaps I should explain to you that I'm a foreigner. Mr. Mangat, I have a blood type that has no earthly origin. I have Rh negative blood. I know you have no clue what that means, Mr. Mangat. That means, Mr. Mangat, that I have the right to stand and claim as a woman, not a female monkey like most of the persons here. Animals. That's why there's no understanding amongst myself and those I'm trying to deal with and force you to do what's right, because you're not going to do what's right on your own. No, I have to force you as a woman to follow the law. So here, these are invoices. Mr. Mangat, I'm not going to present anything that isn't the truth. So now what you're looking at on page 5 of this presentment is proof. I don't have evidence, Mr. Mangat. I have proof. I have proof of monies that your institution, CIBC, owes to me immediately. Immediately. That's why these invoices are here. Because I, unlike CIBC and their agents, are not guilty of fraud. I'm not a liar. I have no lies to tell. That's not my office. Do you understand, Mr. Mangat, that these invoices are due and payable now? These are monies that have been stolen from an inheritance, and you can't do that in Canada? You can't do that in Canada. You can't move it into an inheritance and start ripping it apart and stealing what you want and then riding off into the sunset thinking you're going to get away with it, because that's not how life works. That's not how law and justice works. So these are all invoices. This is all proof of why you must immediately pay the invoice that has been presented to you repeatedly. It was presented to your agents in court. It was presented to your agents through email. What is the problem? You're posting $6.4 billion in profits. Why can't you pay this presentment? Mr. Mangat, I have very serious health issues relating to what has been done to me by this principal, CIBC, and its agents. I realize that you can't tell the truth. I realize that you can't apologize to me because that admits your guilt. But you are the only agent of CIBC with personal knowledge of the subject matter I am talking about, and you are charged with handling this matter going forward. Now, I'm about to make an appointment with you, Mr. Mangat, because I called your number yesterday afternoon. I have the call recorded as proof of refusal to serve, which is the indictable offense of fraud. You are working at the Telecom branch. You're working at the Telecom branch, Mr. Mangat. So, Thursday afternoon, I believe it's the 10th of February, Mr. Mangat, I am going to be attending the Telecom branch of CIBC. And upon my visitation, Mr. Mangat, there is going to be a bank draft in my name. In my name, Mr. Mangat, you know my name. It's written throughout all the documentation you are receiving. There's going to be a bank draft available and ready for me to seize in the amount of $175,000, Mr. Mangat. You're also going to make sure, Mr. Mangat, as I have given instructions to the real estate agent, and the real estate agent's there's a fraudulent mortgage on my home, Mr. Mangat, being held by Scotiabank. So there's going to have to be a meeting between you, Scotiabank agents, and these two individuals, Sandra Dennis and Benjamin Howe, who do not have a valid charge. They do not have a valid mortgage on my stolen property. It's stolen property. So those matters have to be dealt with. They have to be reversed. And because I have full and complete knowledge that no bar member is capable of undoing what's been done, I have full and complete jurisdiction. I have full and complete authority to direct what's going to happen and how it happens. No one tells me what's going to be happening. I'm going to be giving you and everybody else involved in these crimes counsel. You take my counsel, you listen to my counsel, and you follow my counsel, because I'm the only woman here who's in her right mind. Mr. Mangat, how about I kick your mother out of her home and steal all her money? Would you like that? Because I have every right to do that. I have every right to treat you and your family the way you treated me and my family. And yes, Mr. Mangat, you are personally responsible because you're personally involved. We spoke to each other face to face, eye to eye. Do you remember that, Mr. Mangat? That's how I got your business card. So, your job between now and 3 p.m. Thursday, February the 10th, is to make sure there is a bank draft prepared for $175,000 in my name, and the note on the bank draft says gift. It's a gift because you are reimbursing me for all the monies that you have stolen from me, which you have no lawful or legal right to do. Perhaps you need to understand, Mr. Mangat, the level of my rage, the level of my disgust at agents of CIBC, and your inability to do what's right and good and just. Because at the end of the day, I can guarantee you it is going to matter. Everything you say and everything you do matters, Mr. Mangat. So you're going to listen to me and you're going to follow my counsel, all right? Do we understand each other, Mr. Mangat? You and I will be working extremely closely together now to undo all that's been done. And yes, Mr. Mangat, you need to start speaking to individuals, agents for CIBC, who can settle this matter. Because if you force me to file actions against you in any type of court, that's going to prove extremely unfruitful and expensive for this criminal organization, CIBC. And how embarrassing for you. I mean, seriously? Mr. Mangat, are you aware of the scriptures at all? Mr. Mangat, the native language of my people, the peculiar people, sits on the witness box of every courtroom in the Commonwealth. I come from a culture of the living. And that's my culture. That's my ethnic identity and my heritage. The living one sent me here to watch what's going on in this sick, disgusting society. How dare you steal my home and then steal hundreds of thousands of dollars not owed to you? How dare you? And yes, you personally knew, because you personally received a package of information. What did you do with the information I presented to you? There was a contract inside that information that proved, Mr. Mangat, that you and your principal, CIBC, are not listed in the trust. Your name isn't listed there as a beneficiary. I tell you what, Mr. Mangat, thieves are never intelligent, okay? Thieves are never intelligent. Your team of indictable crime-committing criminals in Kamloops and in Victoria here, what a joke. What an absolute joke. I mean, can any of you even blush with shame? It's not possible for you to be embarrassed, is it, Mr. Mangat, because you all actually believe that you're above the law. Title fraud, which is what you did to me and my family, Mr. Mangat, is a crime happening twice a week in Canada. So the material fact that you all believe that you can just sweep this under the rug, steal my private homestead, and steal every single dollar is absolutely egregious, ridiculous, satanic behavior. How embarrassing for CIBC. How good was my spouse to you? He always paid his bills. He always paid on time. He never gave you a day of trouble. He had life insurance on our mortgage. I'm fully aware of the hundreds of thousands of dollars CIBC illegally made on interest when that mortgage was paid out, and yet you come after me. I don't have a contract with you, Mr. Mangat. My spouse had a contract with you. I don't have and nor did I ever, nor would I ever contract with CIBC. But these matters are going to be handled, and they're going to be handled exactly the way I tell you they're going to be handled. Because the peculiar people are all experts in law and justice, Mr. Mangat. And I require all agents of CIBC to tell the truth and to be honest. Because I'm not going to stop until everybody in Canada knows what you are and who you all are and what you're really all about. The public has a right to know, Mr. Mangat. And Mr. Mangat, I have a responsibility to hold you personally responsible if you continue to refuse to do what's right. Because you realize, Mr. Mangat, the $175,000 that's due and payable now is just the tip of the iceberg of the damages that are going to be paid to me for the indictable criminal offenses and the civil trespasses that have been committed against myself and my family. We're innocent, Mr. Mangat. I mean, seriously? Because I'm vulnerable and I'm an easy target? You and other evildoers are just going to come and steal it all, leaving me homeless and destitute year after year? Mr. Mangat, are you aware that I have been repeatedly raped as I was left with no money and nowhere to go? As a result of the actions taken by you personally and your agents, and agents acting as the BC Supreme Court, and agents acting as the BC Attorney Generals. Those are all criminal organizations I just listed, by the way, Mr. Mangat. I'm not a liar, Mr. Mangat. I'm a truth teller. I'm a woman of truth. That's why the world hates me, Mr. Mangat. Yes, this world hates me. I've been trying to take possession back of my home since the end of November from the criminals who have my home, and I have been repeatedly violently assaulted by agents of Victoria Police Department and Saanich Police Department. Now, what do you have to say about that, Mr. Mangat? Because a real man would never allow that to happen, right? A real men don't allow that to happen to anybody in their society. So let me tell you one more time, Mr. Mangat, you've got 48 hours. You've got 48 hours to prepare a bank draft in the amount of $175,000. That bank draft will have my name on it, Mr. Mangat. My name is Victoria Nevens, and on that bank draft, Mr. Mangat, it is going to be noted that this is a gift. This is a gift. The $175,000 for reimbursement is a gift. It's not income. It's not taxable income. Do you understand? You and I are going to be seeing each other face to face, Mr. Mangat. Don't run and hide from this. And like I say, I need a meeting set up. I need a meeting set up between you and agents of Scotiabank, because that second fraudulent mortgage that's on my stolen property, it has to be dissolved. Okay? And I don't associate. I don't associate with bar members. I have a right. I have a lawful right to refuse to deal with bar members, because bar members are ignorant of the law. Bar members falsely believe that they're above the law. And bar members are those who have committed repeated acts of barratry against me and my family in order to try to sue me into suicide. So, Mr. Mangat, my health, welfare, and safety are my top priority. And as administrator, I'm the named executor, Mr. Mangat. So my job is to protect the beneficiaries. I'm a beneficiary, Mr. Mangat. I'm the life tenant on that